Welcome to the deep dive. If you've been following the news in the humanities lately, you know that the entire field of archaeology is really undergoing a fundamental transformation.
It really is.
It's no longer defined just by, careful brushstrokes, dusty relics, and shovels. It's about deep learning algorithms, satellite vision, and even autonomous robots.
Yeah.
So today, we are taking a deep dive into how artificial intelligence and robotics are absolutely revolutionizing the discovery, analysis, and preservation of the human past.
That's the essential insight we have to start with, I think. Traditional archaeological methods,
Yeah.
manual surveys, meticulous excavation, painstaking reconstruction, they're just notoriously slow.
Incredibly slow.
Yeah, and time-consuming, and frankly, prone to human error or just missing incredibly subtle clues in the landscape or in the artifacts.
Right.
AI changes the whole picture. It leverages advanced data analysis, machine learning to dramatically enhance the speed and, maybe more importantly, the accuracy of discoveries. And on a massive scale.
A massive scale.
It's a complete paradigm shift. It really is. Moving archaeology firmly into the realm of, well, big data science.
So our mission today is to sort of synthesize the latest academic and industry findings across this really rapidly evolving field. We'll be covering specific case studies, incredible stuff,
Yeah.
from reading invisible charred texts that have basically been lumps of charcoal for 2,000 years
Amazing.
to finding entire lost cities hidden under dense jungle canopies. And critically, we need to talk about the actual mechanisms behind these breakthroughs and, importantly, the necessary human-AI collaboration that makes all this new knowledge possible.
Yeah, that collaboration piece is key.
Okay, let's dig into this straight away because the scale you mentioned is it's truly breathtaking. AI is now giving archaeologists something like, X-ray vision from space, locating structures, disturbances hidden for millennia.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually.
How exactly does this shift archaeology from, a localized boots-on-the-ground field project to this massive global data processing effort?
Well, it fundamentally shifts the whole scope, particularly the initial planning phase.
Yeah.
We're talking about remote sensing, things like satellite imagery, aerial photography, married to vision AI.
Vision AI. Okay.
Right. These systems use really sophisticated machine learning algorithms, and they process just vast data sets, terabytes often, of satellite and aerial imagery.
Oh.
A lot of it commercially sourced, high-resolution stuff.
Right.
The AI is trained to identify patterns, subtle anomalies, things that are simply too faint or just too complex for a human interpreter to spot consistently, especially not across thousands of square miles of historical landscape.
Okay. So it's seeing things we just can't. And we've got some pretty incredible examples of this actually working in the field now. I was really struck by the sheer speed increase mentioned in one of our sources about South America.
Oh, absolutely. You're probably thinking of the Nazca region in Peru.
Yes, the Nazca lines.
Exactly. Those famous geoglyphs, they've puzzled scholars for decades, right?
Yeah.
But the traditional manual survey was just limited to what you could physically see on the ground, or maybe from a low-flying plane.
Oh.
By deploying an AI system, trained specifically to analyze subtle surface changes and geometric consistency in the landscape data. Well, researchers discovered 303 new figurative geoglyphs.
300? And how long?
In just 6 months.
Wow, just 6 months. That's incredible. That would have taken years, decades maybe, the old way?
Easily.
Decades.
But why? Why did the AI see what humans, even looking for them, missed? What was the mechanism?
Well, it comes down to what the AI is actually looking for. It wasn't necessarily searching for deep trenches like the more famous lines. It was identifying extremely subtle chromatic variations in the soil patina.
Chromatic variations, like color changes. Exactly. Tiny changes in color and texture caused by differential weathering and erosion over huge distances. Things the human eye just wouldn't register as significant or connected. It detects these geometrically consistent alignments and surface depressions that indicate organized human activity, even when those features are almost completely weathered away.
Okay, so it's picking up ghosts in the landscape, essentially.
That's a good way to put it. And finding that many new ones, well, it fundamentally changes our interpretation of Nazca culture. It suggests the activity was far more widespread, far more integrated into their society than we previously understood.
So yeah, years of trudging through the desert versus 6 months of computation, that's a powerful illustration of just raw efficiency.
Definitely.
But what about when the sites aren't out in the open desert? What if they're obscured by, say, massive vegetation, like rainforests?
Well, that's where the technical integration becomes even more critical, and that's where LIDAR comes in.
LIDAR, right. Light detection and ranging. We hear about it with self-driving cars, but how does it work for archaeology?
Well, we know LIDAR uses laser pulses to map terrain in 3D, but the key insight for understanding its use here is how the AI handles the complexity of the data it gets back.
Okay.
LIDAR sends out laser pulses, and it gets multiple returns for each pulse. When a laser hits, say, a dense forest,
Uh-huh.
it might bounce off the top leaves, that's the first return, then maybe some branches lower down, intermediate returns, and finally, crucially, it hits the solid ground beneath the canopy. That's the last return.
And I guess a traditional system, or just looking at the raw data, would just show a massive, chaotic cloud of points, all the leaves and branches.
Precisely, just noise, effectively.
Mm.
The AI's machine learning algorithms are trained specifically to filter out that noise, that immense data volume from the canopy and the vegetation, and isolate only those crucial last return pulses.
So it digitally removes the forest.
It digitally strips away the forest, exactly, generating a bare earth map that suddenly reveals the structures underneath. Walls, foundations, terraces.
That sounds exactly like how those huge Maya discoveries were made in Central America recently.
It is the defining breakthrough of modern Mesoamerican archaeology. No question. This combination of AI processing LiDAR data led to that incredible discovery of over 60,000 previously unknown ancient Maya archaeological sites.
60,000.
Yeah. Across the Yucatan Peninsula,
Yeah.
Guatemala. We're talking massive fortifications, complex irrigation systems, roads, agricultural terraces, huge structures that were completely hidden by the jungle, utterly undetectable until the AI helped sort through that incredibly dense, multi-layered LiDAR data.
It just rewrites the map, doesn't it? The scale of civilization there.
Completely.
Okay, so if the AI is this good at processing existing data we can see or sense, like with LiDAR, how does it perform when it needs to look for something entirely new? Can it, like, predict where sites should be?
It absolutely can. And that's where we move into predictive site identification.
Okay.
Deep learning models can be fed huge amounts of geographical data, things like elevation, slope, proximity to historical water sources, soil composition, and also historical patterns from past discoveries in the region. What kinds of locations did people prefer? The AI learns these correlations, and that it uses all that to create probability maps, essentially highlighting the likeliest locations for new excavations before a shovel ever touches the ground.
That must dramatically reduce the risk and, crucially, the cost of fieldwork, right? Less speculative digging.
Exactly. Minimizes the guesswork. Consider the example from one study focusing on the Mesopotamian floodplain environment, a really challenging area where historical sites are often buried deep under centuries, millennia of accumulated silt.
Right. Hard to find.
Very. But the deep learning models they used there, trained on the characteristics of known ancient accuracy, tell these artificial mounds formed from collapsed settlements. They achieved an impressive 80% detection accuracy in identifying new potential archaeological sites.
80%. That's incredible precision.
It really is. And that level of precision allows research teams to focus their limited time and resources only where they're most likely to get significant results.
The sheer scale of these projects and the speed, as you said, at which they can document vast areas, it feels like it's revolutionizing how we approach cultural documentation itself, especially when heritage is under threat.
Yes, exactly. That large-scale, high-speed documentation capability is now possible, and it's absolutely vital in unstable regions or areas facing rapid development.
Like the Middle East and North Africa.
Precisely. You have projects like EMENA, the Endangered Archaeology in the Middle East and North Africa project. They use remote sensing, primarily satellite imagery analyzed by AI, across 20 countries in the MENA region.
20 countries. Wow.
Yeah. Their main goal is to rapidly document and assess sites that are increasingly threatened by conflict, by unchecked urban sprawl or agricultural development, and of course by environmental changes like desertification. They're essentially creating detailed digital records, baseline maps of entire archaeological landscapes that are at risk of disappearing.
Working across 20 countries, many of them conflict zones, that must present immense challenges. Just standardizing the data, the logistics.
Oh, huge challenges. EMENA's success really relies on the AI's ability to ingest and standardize input from diverse satellite sources, different resolutions, different sensors, and, critically, to interpret signs of recent human disturbance.
Like looting.
Exactly. The AI can be trained to recognize the telltale visual signatures of illegal digging, like pockmarks on the landscape, or new access roads appearing near known sites. By processing imagery that goes back decades, they can actually track the degradation of a site chronologically, see how and when the damage occurred.
So it's not just finding sites, it's monitoring their condition over time.
Yes. And this rapid data acquisition is also crucial for proactive preservation, not just documenting damage after it's happened.
Trying to get ahead of the threats.
Exactly. And that brings us to initiatives like the Cultural Landscape Scanner, or CLS. It's a collaboration between the Italian Institute of Technology and the European Space Agency, ESA. This project uses machine learning to detect the most subtle signs of ancient human activity from space. We're talking things like minor, long-term shifts in soil chemistry caused by ancient farming or settlements, which might affect vegetation growth patterns centuries later, things invisible to the eye.
Wow. So subtle changes in plant health seen from space.
Precisely. By detecting these incredibly subtle indicators, CLS can help preemptively identify sites that might be under threat from, say, encroaching agriculture or even organized looting activity before the physical damage actually starts. It's about moving archaeology much more firmly into a proactive preservation model, using AI as an early warning system. So if finding the sites and mapping the landscapes was the first big area, the next great challenge, obviously, once we find these places, is dealing with the fragmented evidence at the site, particularly the written record.
Right, the text.
Yeah. And for centuries, texts that are too damaged or just too complex to read have been this source of profound frustration for historians and linguists. But AI is now transforming linguistic archaeology by, in some cases, literally making the invisible visible.
And the most famous case study here, it has to be the Herculaneum scrolls, right? These have been, for centuries, just these tantalizing lumps of charcoal. An entire library from antiquity frozen at the moment Mount Vesuvius erupted in AD 79.
Exactly. They were instantly carbonized by the pyroclastic flow, turned into these brittle, fragile, often fused together lumps. Physically unrolling them was, well, catastrophic. It just destroyed them.
Right.
But the papyrus structure itself is often intact inside, just completely blackened. And the ink, usually an iron-based or carbon-based ink, is chemically almost indistinguishable from the carbonized paper.
So how do you read it?
The breakthrough came through combining deep learning techniques with high-resolution X-ray micro-CT scanning, like a medical CT scan, but much, much finer resolution.
Okay, so you got a 3D X-ray. But how does the AI unroll a physical lump? That still sounds like science fiction.
Well, the process is sometimes called virtual image processing and segmentation, or VIPS. The high-res X-ray scan creates a detailed 3D map of the scroll's internal structure, layer by layer. The AI then processes these massive 3D data volumes, and it's trained to look for extremely faint differences in density within that 3D map, differences caused by the slightly different material properties of the ink compared to the papyrus, even after charring.
So it's detecting the ghost of the ink inside the charred lump.
Pretty much, yes. These ink traces are so slight, they're completely invisible to the naked eye, or even to standard imaging software. The AI's algorithms are trained specifically to enhance this minute contrast and, crucially, to segment the layers to digitally separate one layer of the papyrus from the next in the rolled-up scroll.
It digitally unstacks them.
Exactly. It digitally unstacks them, revealing the text in sequence, layer by layer, without ever physically touching the fragile object.
So the deep learning is acting like a hypersensitive contrast filter, but operating on the 3D structural data from the X-ray.
Precisely. And this technique is now starting to reveal previously unreadable Greek texts. There's huge excitement that we might find lost works of classical philosophers, maybe playwrights. It's a complete game changer for classical history, letting us access original sources we thought were lost forever without destroying the artifact in the process.
That is just incredible. And it's a clear case of technology doing something humans simply couldn't. But then there's the synergy, right, where AI enhances human experts. Let's talk about the Ithaca project and ancient Greek inscriptions.
Ah, yes, Ithaca, developed by DeepMind. It's a phenomenal demonstration of this synergy in epigraphy and the study of inscriptions, usually carved in stone.
Okay.
Ithaca is a single neural network, but it's designed to jointly tackle three core historical tasks for fragmented ancient Greek inscriptions: restoring the missing text in gaps, attributing a date, the chronology, and attributing a place of origin, the geography.
Right. So restoring missing text. How accurate is the machine doing that compared to, say, a human historian looking at the same broken stone?
Well, the Ithaca model, on its own, can restore missing characters or words in Greek texts with about 62% accuracy.
62%? That sounds pretty good.
It's a significant leap forward when you compare it to the average performance of unassisted ancient historians doing the same task. Their accuracy, based on DeepMind's tests, sat around 25%.
Wow. Okay. That's a big difference. How does the AI do it? Guessing.
It's not really guessing. It's predicting the statistically most probable letter or word sequence based on everything it's learned from thousands of intact inscriptions, grammar, common phrasing, vocabulary, stylistic conventions, the semantic context.
Okay. But the really interesting part the source mentioned is when they collaborate. The AI plus the historian.
Indeed, that's the crucial finding. When human historians collaborated with Ithaca, using its suggestions as a tool, their combined performance in accurately restoring the text routinely surpassed the model's 62% alone. It jumped significantly higher, often into the high 70s or 80% accuracy.
So the historian provides the deeper context.
Yeah, exactly. The human specialist brings the high-level domain knowledge, the specific cultural context, maybe the political or religious meaning of a particular phrase in that city at that time, which allows them to evaluate and refine the AI's statistically probable outputs. They can choose the best suggestion or correct it slightly, turning a 62% probability into a near-certain restoration.
So it firmly establishes the AI as a powerful research assistant, not a replacement for the expert.
Absolutely. That's the key takeaway.
And its ability to date these inscriptions. I mean, predicting dates over 2,000 years old with high accuracy seems incredible.
It's remarkably accurate. Ithaca can predict the original date of an inscription, even if it's quite fragmented, with an average accuracy of less than 30 years.
Within 30 years, 2 millennia ago.
Yes, which is often more precise than traditional paleographic dating methods based on letter shapes alone. And furthermore, Ithaca's dating predictions have independently aligned with the very latest historical scholarship on the dates for some disputed Athenian inscriptions. So it's providing a powerful, data-driven way to reevaluate and refine historical event timelines.
That ability, as the outline said, to predict the past by restoring lost knowledge and pinning down dates. It's a profound step.
It really is.
And beyond ancient Greek, AI is starting to tackle even more complex linguistic mysteries, right? The languages that are lost or deeply fragmented, the ones that have stumped scholars for centuries.
That's right. I mean, take Akkadian, written in cuneiform script on clay tablets.
Mesopotamian script, very complex.
Incredibly complex. You have a single sign that can represent different syllables or even whole words depending on context. Plus, the sheer volume of tablets, hundreds of thousands recovered, many fragmented. Manual translation is just incredibly difficult and slow.
So how does AI help there?
There's a project called the Babylonian Engine. It uses neural machine translation, or NMT, the same kind of AI behind Google Translate, but highly specialized.
Okay, NMT. How does that differ from older computer translation methods for something like cuneiform?
Well, previous attempts often relied on more rigid, rule-based systems, or essentially digital dictionaries. They struggled a lot with the morphology, the word endings, and the semantic ambiguity of cuneiform. NMT, on the other hand, uses deep learning to process sequences of text. It doesn't just look up words. It learns the relationship between symbols and their contextual meaning from vast amounts of data.
It learns the grammar and meaning implicitly.
Exactly. And it can automate the translation of Akkadian cuneiform into English with surprisingly high accuracy, helping scholars work through these vast archives of complex administrative or literary texts much, much faster than ever before. It's speeding up the whole field.
Okay, but what about the scripts we still can't really read at all, like the famous mystery script from Crete, Linear A?
Ah, Linear A, the script of the Minoan civilization. It's remained undecoded for centuries, really confounding traditional linguistic analysis. We can read the signs phonetically because they're similar to the later Linear B script, which was deciphered.
Which turned out to be Greek.
Exactly. But Linear A is in Greek. The underlying language is unknown. AI models are now accelerating the effort there by applying systematic, unbiased data analysis on a scale humans can't easily manage.
How does that work if you don't know the language?
Well, the AI analyzes statistical patterns, simple frequencies, which signs appear next to which other signs most often, which signs tend to appear at the beginning of words or the end. It uses clustering algorithms to group symbols based on their contextual usage, comparing these patterns to known linguistic structures in other ancient languages, including Linear B.
So the AI is basically looking for statistical clues that might imply grammatical structure, even if we don't know what the words mean.
Precisely. It's looking for the underlying rules, the patterns that suggest prefixes, suffixes, root words. This objective, pattern-driven approach has started to offer plausible structural readings for maybe over 30% of the Linear A script. identifying potential word boundaries, possible grammatical markers.
So still no full decipherment, no Rosetta Stone moment yet.
Not yet. We still don't know what language it represents. But the AI is providing a much more robust statistical framework. It's highlighting the most promising avenues for comparison, guiding future decipherment efforts, and moving the field past centuries of, frankly, often very speculative human attempts. It's laying the groundwork.
Okay, so we found the sites, we're starting to read the texts, but the value of AI in archaeology isn't just in discovery or deciphering, it's also hugely important in safeguarding what actually remains, right? Putting the pieces back together.
Absolutely. We can now leverage machine learning to help reconstruct artifacts that have been badly damaged or fragmented over millennia. Specifically, AI is being used with something called generative adversarial networks, or GANs.
GNs. Okay, that sounds complicated.
It is a bit, but the concept is really clever. GANs are used to predict the missing elements of damaged artifacts. Things like pottery, frescoes, even sculptures.
How does it predict a missing piece of a pot? Is it just guessing?
It's more like educated guessing, powered by AI. A GAN is essentially two neural networks working in opposition, hence adversarial.
Okay, two networks fighting each other.
Sort of. The first network is the generator. It takes the fragmented artifact data, the pieces we do have, and it tries to create the missing piece. It makes a guess based on the surrounding patterns, shape, decoration.
Aww.
The second network is the discriminator. This one's job is to judge the generator's output. The discriminator has been trained on thousands and thousands of examples of real, historically accurate, intact artifacts from that same period or culture.
So the discriminator is like the expert historian, the fact checker.
Precisely. It knows what a complete Roman amphora or a Minoan fresco should look like. If the generator produces a piece of pottery decoration that looks maybe statistically plausible based on the fragment, but is historically incorrect for that type of vessel or that time period.
The discriminator says, nope, try again.
Exactly. It rejects it. This constant feedback loop forces the generator to get better and better, to continuously improve its output until its guess is not just statistically likely based on the fragment, but historically plausible and consistent with the known domain knowledge embedded in the discriminator.
Okay, that makes the process sound much more rigorous and trustworthy. It's not just filling in blanks randomly.
Not at all. It's using historical knowledge encoded in data to make the best possible reconstruction.
And the restoration work at Pompeii, that's a perfect example of this AI prediction being combined with robotics to actually do the physical work, right?
Yes, the repair project that stands for Reconstruction of Pompeian Architectural Interiors and Art Recovery. It's a great Italian initiative illustrating this fusion. They're dealing with frescoes that collapsed from walls during the eruption, often into tens of thousands of tiny fragments.
A nightmare jigsaw puzzle.
The worst kind. The AI software analyzes scans of all these fragments, decoding characteristics like size, shape, paint pigments, edge profiles, brushstroke patterns. Then, using the principles we just discussed, it generates a digital map, a blueprint of the most probable original assembly.
And then the robots come in.
Then the robots come in. Specialized robotic arms, guided by that AI blueprint, are used to physically and precisely pick up and piece those fragile fragments together in 3 dimensions.
All robots. Why not humans?
Precision, consistency, and fatigue. A robot doesn't get tired or bored sorting tiny, similar-looking fragments for 6 months straight. It can maintain millimeter accuracy hour after hour. The return on investment here is really in that sustained, precise labor for a task that's incredibly taxing for humans. This fusion safeguards the fragile heritage with unparalleled precision and speeds up the process enormously.
And speaking of speeding up tedious tasks, archaeologists spend a huge amount of time just sorting pottery fragments, right? That process of archaeology is often incredibly repetitive.
Oh, unbelievably tedious and time-consuming. Sorting pottery sherds is a fundamental but laborious part of almost every excavation. Projects like Archaeology are aiming to automate the initial identification and cataloging of these mountains of pieces.
How does Archaeology work?
It uses computer vision and image recognition. An archaeologist can just take photos of the fragments, maybe even with a smartphone in the field, and the AI system analyzes the images. It classifies the sherds automatically by key characteristics, size, shape, curvature, fabric type, decoration style, texture.
Instantly sorting them into categories.
Yeah, exactly. This ability to instantly categorize and index a huge volume of finds drastically reduces the artifact analysis time in the lab. It frees up the human researchers to focus their valuable time on the higher level interpretation, rather than spending months just sorting basic sherds. They can process much more material.
Okay, so beyond physically putting pieces back together, AI is also essential for digital preservation and visualization. We're hearing about creating digital twins of entire sites now.
Yes, digital twins are becoming incredibly important. These are highly detailed, accurate 3D models of archaeological sites and artifacts. They're usually created using technologies like photogrammetry, taking hundreds or thousands of overlapping photos or laser scanning. And AI is often used to help process that raw data into a clean, textured 3D model.
Right.
But what's really fascinating is that this process allows researchers not just to capture what exists now, but sometimes to reconstruct the original appearance, including structure and depth, often using surprisingly limited source material, like old 2D photos.
Wait, getting 3D structural information from a flat old 2D photo? That sounds counterintuitive. How does that work?
It relies on the AI algorithms being trained on known architectural principles, perspective geometry, and how light and shadow work. There was an astonishing case study involving the Borobudur Temple in Indonesia.
Okay.
Researchers were able to use a single, aging black and white photograph of the temple taken 134 years ago.
One photo.
One photo. And from that single image, they used AI to recover an estimated 97% of the original 3D information about the intricate stone relief carvings on one section of the temple.
How?
The AI analyzed the subtle clues in the photo, the shadows, the perspective distortions, the slight textural changes in the grayscale image, and combined that with knowledge of Buddhist iconography and the known carving styles of the period. It could infer the depth and shape of the original carvings, even including portions that had been obscured or damaged by later modifications made during the Dutch colonial era.
So the machine essentially used its historical and visual knowledge base to fill in the missing 3D data points from the 2D image.
Precisely. In a way that simple geometric calculations never could. It recovered lost heritage data from a single historical photo.
That's mind-blowing. And once we have these incredibly accurate digital twins, whether from photos or scans, it must dramatically transform public accessibility, right?
Absolutely. It democratizes access to heritage in a huge way. You have platforms now like ArchaeVR, developed by a group called Heritage Builder Tech. They use AI to take these detailed digital twins and create interactive virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR experiences.
So you can walk around Petra from your living room.
Exactly. It enables the public, students, researchers anywhere in the world to explore incredibly fragile or remote sites, like the ancient city of Petra in Jordan, virtually. This provides immense educational value, but just as importantly, it helps preserve the physical integrity of the actual site by reducing the wear and tear from heavy tourism. You can explore without eroding.
And in high-risk areas, maybe places prone to conflict or environmental disasters, this kind of detailed digital documentation provides an essential backup, right? A permanent record.
It's absolutely crucial for that. We see this with the work of organizations like Iconum. They use drones to capture images quickly and then AI to process them into high-fidelity 3D digital models of historical landmarks. They've done vital work in places like Palmyra in Syria, sites constantly threatened by conflict or natural decay.
So if the worst happens,
If the worst happens, these AI-processed digital models serve as vital, millimeter-accurate resources. They can be used for education, for research, potentially even for guiding future physical reconstruction efforts, if that becomes possible. They are an essential digital archive, especially for sites that might become inaccessible or suffer catastrophic damage. It's about preserving the memory digitally when the physical structure is at risk. Okay, so our previous sections focused a lot on data analysis, computer vision, either from afar using satellites or in the lab processing scans and photos. Now we should turn to some more specialized applications that put AI much more directly into the physical environment, starting with the huge logistical challenge of urban archaeology.
Right, digging in cities, that must be incredibly complex. You're trying to excavate potential historical layers right underneath dense modern infrastructure, buildings, roads, utilities, without causing major disruption.
It's a logistical nightmare, honestly. It's defined by incredibly high costs, tight timelines dictated by construction schedules, and the constant risk of damaging modern services or delaying expensive development projects. Traditional methods often require digging large, disruptive exploratory trenches just to see if anything significant is there.
Very inefficient.
Very. So a company called Urban Dig Inc. developed a tool called Urban Analyzer to tackle this. It's a geospatial AI tool.
Geospatial AI, what does it analyze?
It analyzes layers and layers of data relevant to a specific urban plot. Things like historical maps showing older street layouts or buildings, geological surveys, records of previous archaeological finds nearby, maybe ground-penetrating radar scans, even current utility line plans. It fuses all of this information together.
Mm.
And then the AI uses that fused data to create a highly accurate probability density map of archaeological potential before any digging starts. It pinpoints the specific zones within a construction site that have the highest likelihood of containing significant remains.
So it's all about targeting accuracy to minimize the physical impact on the city. How successful was that approach? Did it work?
Reports suggest it was hugely successful. Urban Analyzer apparently increased the discovery rate of significant artifacts by something like 80%.
80% more finds.
Yes, while simultaneously reducing the required physical excavation area by 50%.
Wow. Find more by digging less.
Exactly. That kind of efficiency allows city planners and developers to incorporate archaeological assessments much earlier and more accurately into their development plans. They can potentially preserve important historical layers while still supporting modern urban growth, and crucially, minimizing those incredibly expensive construction delays caused by unexpected discoveries.
Okay, now let's talk about the robots actually getting their hands, or wheels, dirty. We often hear this term embodied intelligence in AI research. The idea that real intelligence needs a physical form to interact with and learn from the complex physical world.
Right.
And archaeology seems incredibly rich in these kinds of embodied tasks, doesn't it? Things that require physical presence and action.
Yes, embodied AI is a really relevant concept here because archaeological fieldwork is, by definition, physical, messy, and happens in complex, unstructured environments. It inherently requires tasks like precise surveying over uneven ground, careful mapping, systematic sorting of fragments, autonomous documentation in often difficult terrain or weather.
Stuff robots might be good at.
Potentially, yes. And we are seeing the development of various robotic rover systems specifically for archaeology. They're testing different kinds of locomotion-legged robots like Boston Dynamics Spot, wheeled rovers, tracked vehicles, depending on the terrain. And these robots are equipped with sophisticated sensors and computer vision systems.
So what are these robots actually carrying? What sensors? And what are they doing in the field? Are they digging?
Mostly not digging yet. That's still very complex. They're designed more as high-tech field assistants for survey and documentation. Their sensor payloads often include things like ground-penetrating radar, GPR, to look for buried walls or features, multispectral imaging cameras to detect subtle chemical anomalies in the soil that might indicate human activity, and of course high-precision GPS for exact location tagging.
Okay.
Their job, ideally, is to autonomously navigate a designated survey area, avoiding obstacles like trees and rocks, using their vision systems while simultaneously detecting potential archaeological material or features, tagging their exact location, and documenting them with their sensors, collecting data far more efficiently, systematically, and uniformly than a human team walking transects, especially over large areas.
But one of the biggest hurdles in any high-tech field, especially in academia or less wealthy regions, is the cost barrier, isn't it? Are these incredibly expensive university research projects, or are they becoming more accessible?
That's a really critical point, and it's why the push for open hardware initiatives in this area is so vital.
Open hardware, like open source software, but for physical devices.
Exactly. This approach tries to address the cost issue directly. It promotes the use of things like affordable 3D printing for robot parts, common off-the-shelf sensors, and open-source software for control and navigation. The designs and code are shared freely.
So labs can build or modify their own robots more cheaply.
Precisely. It makes developing these sophisticated, customizable robotic systems much more affordable and accessible, especially for research teams in universities with limited budgets or archaeologists working in developing nations. It's really about trying to democratize access to this powerful technology for archaeological discovery.
And the complexity of the archaeological environment isn't just on land. Underwater archaeology must present a whole unique set of challenges: darkness, pressure, currents, where AI and robotics seem perfectly suited because the environment is just so hostile and limiting for humans.
Absolutely. The dangers, the limited bottom time due to decompression sickness, the poor visibility, it all makes human exploration underwater incredibly difficult and expensive. AI and robotics offer huge advantages.
Like in those submerged Roman cities off Italy.
Exactly. Places like Patini near Naples, a Roman luxury resort town now largely underwater. In sites like these, researchers are deploying AI-powered systems. These can include autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, for mapping, but also stationary sensor networks.
What do the sensors monitor?
They might use AI-powered acoustic modems for better underwater communication and networking. The sensors themselves monitor environmental factors like water currents, temperature, salinity, sediment migration, things that could affect the preservation of the underwater ruins.
Huh.
AI can also assist human divers directly, helping with crucial tasks like high-precision navigation within the complex, often confusing submerged structures, or maybe using computer vision to help identify artifacts in low visibility. It's all about maximizing the efficiency and safety of human dive time and minimizing physical contact with fragile underwater heritage.
Okay, finally, before we move on, let's just briefly tie all this technological advancement back to the grand narrative of humanity itself. How is AI enhancing the study of deep human history, human evolution?
Well, AI is having a dramatic impact there too, mainly by allowing the analysis of massive, incredibly complex data sets derived from ancient DNA, aDNA, and fossil evidence with unprecedented precision.
Processing huge amounts of genetic code.
Exactly. Deep learning models are particularly good at processing complex genomic data, identifying patterns in ancient human haplogroups, tracing genetic lineages across time and space. They can then cross-reference this genetic information with paleoclimate records, with archaeological site data, with geographical information systems,
Are
GIS.
finding multiple lines of evidence at scale.
Yes, and this allows researchers to reconstruct ancient human migration rates, map settlement patterns, and understand population interactions with a level of detail and confidence that was simply impossible with traditional methods. The sheer volume and complexity of the data required needed AI to unlock these deeper insights into our species' history.
Okay, we've seen some absolutely incredible breakthroughs. Finding cities from space, reading unreadable texts, rebuilding artifacts, mapping human migrations. But here's where the discussion really gets critical, I think. We have to talk about the precise relationship between the human experts and this powerful technology. What are the challenges, the risks, when we start relying on AI to effectively rewrite our understanding of the past?
That's right. This is crucial. And the first, maybe the most important point, which we've touched on a few times, is the absolute necessity of human domain expertise. AI does not, and likely never will, replace human knowledge in archaeology or history.
It's a tool, not the whole toolbox.
Exactly. We saw with Ithaca, its highest accuracy, its best results are achieved only when it's paired directly with human historians, linguists, or archaeologists. That 62% accuracy from the AI alone is valuable, sure, but the 80% plus accuracy achieved through human-AI collaboration, that's the real goal.
So the human is still essential for interpreting the more subjective data, providing the context, asking the so what question about the findings.
Precisely. Expert domain knowledge is absolutely essential at multiple stages. For refining the initial training data the AI learns from garbage in, garbage out still applies. For evaluating subjective features that an AI might miss or misinterpret, like the subtle artistic quality of a carving or the cultural significance of a particular symbol. And most importantly, for interpreting the historical significance behind the data.
Right.
If an AI tells you a pottery fragment dates precisely to 1450 BCE plus or minus 10 years, that's amazing data. But you still need a human specialist to understand the cultural, economic, and social implications of that date within that specific region's history. AI provides the data points. Humans weave the historical narrative.
This also brings up a really critical issue with the kinds of AI that are becoming pervasive now, large language models, LLMs, like ChatGPT. They're incredibly good at sounding intelligent and authoritative, even when they're completely wrong. The infamous hallucination problem. That must be a major risk when you're dealing with fragile, often ambiguous historical data.
It is arguably the single biggest risk of using general-purpose AI in historical research right now. These models, especially those trained on the vast, unverified mess of the internet, are primarily optimized to predict the next statistically likely word or sentence. Their goal is to sound fluent and human-like, not necessarily to produce verified historical truth.
They prioritize plausibility over accuracy.
Yes, they might generate something grammatically perfect, stylistically appropriate, and sound utterly authoritative, but be completely historically incorrect, especially if the correct specific historical detail is rare, nuanced, or wasn't prominent in their general training data. And in history, specificity and verification are everything. You can't afford authoritative-sounding fiction.
So how is the field trying to mitigate this hallucination risk? How can you use the power of these models safely for historical inquiry?
Well, first and foremost, mandatory, rigorous human double-checking and verification of any AI-generated historical claim against primary sources is non-negotiable. You simply cannot trust the output implicitly.
Right.
Second, there's a growing focus on integrating a technique called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG.
Raji. Okay, what's that?
RAG essentially involves tethering the LLM to a specific curated, verified data set, like the archaeologist's own excavation database, a collection of trusted academic papers, or digitized primary source documents. The model is forced to base its answers primarily on retrieving information from this trusted set before generating its response. It can often even provide citations back to the source documents.
So it grounds the AI in actual evidence.
Exactly. It drastically reduces the likelihood of the AI generating historically fabricated content or hallucinating because it's constrained by the verified data you provide. It retains the AI's power for summarizing, synthesizing, and finding connections within that trusted data, but makes it much safer for historical research. But even with RAG, human oversight remains critical.
Okay. Beyond accuracy and verification, there are also some pretty major ethical and maybe geopolitical concerns tied to relying on potentially globalized technology to study national or local heritage, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. We need really clear protocols and ongoing discussion about data ethics and data management. Projects, especially international ones using remote sensing or shared databases, need careful consideration of how they protect cultural heritage, how they respect indigenous rights and knowledge, and how they adhere to open data policies where appropriate.
Open data policies like FAIR.
Yes, the push for data to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, the FAIR principles, is strong in the scientific community, and archaeology is part of that. But it gets complicated. For global projects like EAMINA, using satellite data, well, the reliance on remote sensing raises critical questions about national sovereignty. Who owns and controls the cultural data derived from a specific nation's territory, especially if that data is generated and processed by foreign satellites or international institutes? How are local communities involved or benefiting? These are complex issues with no easy answers yet.
And another concern that often comes up. If the AI and the robots are doing so much of the groundwork now, the mapping, the sorting, maybe even the initial analysis, is there a valid worry about skill atrophy among human archaeologists? Will future archaeologists lose the essential hands-on skills?
It is a profound and very valid concern. It's something constantly debated within the academic community. There's a real risk that an overdependence on black box technology could potentially lead to a decline in traditional fundamental archaeological skills.
Like reading the soil.
Exactly. The ability to interpret subtle changes in soil stratigraphy by sight and feel, to correctly classify pottery sherds by touch and fabric, to understand the logistics of running a complex field excavation manually. If all the primary skill development shifts towards data science, Python programming, and interpreting AI outputs, we risk losing some of the tacit knowledge and critical thinking that comes from direct physical engagement with the archaeological record. That hands-on experience often sparks insights that data alone might miss.
So what's the solution? Not use the tech?
No, the solution isn't avoidance. That's impossible and counterproductive. It's about integration and adapting training. Future archaeologists likely need to be trained to be bilingual effectively, fluent in both traditional field methods and computational approaches. They need to understand how the AI works, its limitations, and be able to dig a clean trench and interpret the finds contextually. It requires a broader skill set than before.
Finally, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room for any large-scale AI deployment: the sustainability cost. These powerful tools that are unlocking the past are incredibly resource-intensive themselves.
That is the ultimate paradox, isn't it? Training these large, deep learning models, running complex simulations, or processing massive data sets like satellite imagery or LIDAR scans requires enormous computational power. That means significant energy consumption and a corresponding carbon footprint.
Right.
So when we weigh the undeniable societal and scientific benefit of recovering lost historical insight against the environmental and resource costs required to achieve it, we have to be mindful. We must ensure that this pursuit of knowledge about the past is done as sustainably and efficiently as possible. Perhaps prioritizing open models, optimizing algorithms, using renewable energy for data centers where possible. It's a cost-benefit analysis we need to constantly engage with. Hashtag outro.
So after all that, what does this really mean for the future of how we understand history? We've seen AI move pretty rapidly from being just a niche statistical tool to becoming an almost indispensable partner in archaeology. It's helping us solve mysteries that have genuinely puzzled humanity for centuries, from piecing together shattered Pompeian frescoes to digitally unrolling charred Greek philosophical texts.
I think this is a clear, really compelling case of technology enabling a field, not replacing it. That's the key message. The major takeaway for me is the incredible power of interdisciplinary collaboration, the synergy between humanities researchers and computer scientists, engineers, data analysts.
Bridging those traditional divides.
Exactly. AI provides this unprecedented ability to process vast amounts of fragmented or hidden data, to perform complex analyses at a scale never before possible, and to help reconstruct lost knowledge.
Mm.
It's offering us a much more comprehensive, more nuanced, and ultimately more accurate picture of our collective human past than we've ever had access to before.
And as we discussed, AI is already successfully helping us, in a sense, predict the past, restoring lost texts, dating events with incredible precision. So here's the final thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today. Something to maybe mull over, connecting the dots on this immense new analytical power. Given that history, especially when viewed through this big data lens, often reveals recurring patterns in human behavior. Patterns in resource use and depletion, patterns in large-scale migration driven by climate or conflict, patterns in settlement growth and collapse, even cycles of cooperation and conflict. Is AI, by mapping these ancient, deep historical patterns with such newfound accuracy and scale, is it effectively providing us with a kind of early warning system? Could it help us in predicting the challenges of the future?
That's an excellent and, frankly, quite provocative thought to end on. If we can start to understand the complex interplay of factors, environmental, social, political, that led to societal collapse or resilience in past civilizations with, say, 80% predictive accuracy based on archaeological data,
Mhm.
what does that level of insight mean for our own future planning? For anticipating resource scarcity or managing migrations or designing more sustainable cities? That knowledge, derived from the deep past but projected forward, that's perhaps the real ultimate goal of all this work. Definitely something to think about.
Something to mull over until our next deep dive.